So I'm going to be talking about the sleeping apostolic giant, which we probably all know what I'm talking about, but I just want to walk through it and give you some hope, encouragement. So everybody keeps coming back. I was reading Psalm 49 this morning. Isaiah 49, and many of you probably know what this says. I just thought it'd be good to read it again. Isaiah 49:6. Well, maybe I'll start with 5. Isaiah 49:5. And now the Lord says, He who formed me from the womb to be his servant, to bring Jacob back to him, and that Israel might be gathered to him. For I am honored in the eyes of the Lord, and my God has become my strength. He who formed me in the womb to be a servant, to bring Jacob back to him, and that Israel might be gathered to him. But then he says in verse 6, that it is too light of a thing that you should be my servant to raise up the tribes of Jacob and to bring back the preserved of Israel. He formed him in the womb to bring Jacob back. That's his purpose. That's his calling. But then the Lord says, it's too light of a thing. I want to do more through you. I want to do even more than that calling, the thing I formed you in the womb for. I want to do something even bigger. It's too light of a thing, too little of a thing, too passing of a thing. It's like a wisp of wind. It's not even worthy of your calling. I will make you a light for the nations, that my salvation may reach to the end of the earth. And of course, I love the expansion of the call there. We all feel that in our guts. We all feel the call to the nations. But I also love there that he says, I will make you a light to the nations. He doesn't say, and I want you to get your act together and execute a better plan and start prioritizing right and start praying more and start getting going here because, you're taking care of Jacob, but I have more for you to do, so get busy, work harder, get it together, read more books. He says, I will make you. And that's just been such a theme for me as I've been praying for you and praying for this conference, that we would all take refuge in the Holy Spirit as the protagonist of our ministries. For a long time, I'm kind of a get after a guy, and I had some spiritual influences in my life that were telling me to get after it. And early in my Catholicism, I was really excited about the church's tradition and fasting, and I had a friend who also got excited about the tradition of fasting, and so we went through Lent one year and we barely ate. I mean, we were just like fasting all the time and brothers and, it was miserable. I mean, it was like, I felt really great about myself. I felt like, man, I'm conquering my flesh and, like I'm beating the brother ass, and taking brother ass to the cleaners and, felt really macho. And, my friend and I were encouraging each other, but I was married at the time. And my wife later said, like, I don't really love it when you fast. Like, why? I'm beating brother ass, and I'm dying to the flesh. And she's like, you're kind of a jerk. You're kind of like quick-tempered and, but that's just kind of how I've always been, like, try harder, grow in holiness, take on new disciplines. I've always had ideals in my mind. I love reading about the saints. I've always, and we as Catholics, we've got a checklist of things that, the holy people do, and we know where we're falling short. And I was always trying to get to the holy people checklist, and I want to be that guy. And And I got a. Then I read Mother Teresa's. I'm stalling, but this is also kind of my introduction, rather than giving you an introduction of whatever people would say about me. This is better. So I read Mother Teresa's "Come Be My Light" once, and anyone read that? It's a beautiful book. But the spiritual darkness in there freaked me out, and what she goes through, and just kind of felt when I was reading the book inevitable that I would go through this. And I was just telling the Lord, I can't be a father. I can't lead this work if I'm going through that kind of darkness. And I was freaking out. I was in the dark about it. And I called a priest friend of mine, and I told him what was going on in my crazy head. And just, I was scared. I became scared of the Lord. I became scared to grow in holiness. I didn't want that. So if holiness is, if me doing the checklist gets me there, I don't think that's going to work for me. And I was like really afraid of the Lord. And my friend said, my priest friend said, yeah, you need a spiritual director, like next week. Like, go find a spiritual director. And so by God's providence, I went to Mass, and there was this Carmelite at Mass, and he preached a homily that was like water to my soul. And I ran up to him after and said I needed spiritual direction. I got together with him, and I told him how I was freaking out about Mother Teresa. And that's when he explained to me that the Lord is the protagonist. And it just, over the years, it's just been freeing me. And I've experienced victories in my life that I almost didn't try for. I mean, they just were handed to me. As I just surrendered and trusted the Lord for my holiness, He's been leading me in freedom into love, into new patience with my kids, into new empathy and concern for my wife, and into better leadership at work, less angry, less intense, less pushing, less all the rough edges I had and I still have been started to be sheared off by the work of the Holy Spirit. By the work of the Holy Spirit. Some of it feels too easy. I don't feel deserving of it. I mean, I've been there's struggles that I've had, like patience with my kids. I grew up with a very intense father, and I brought that same intensity to my family, and I just grieved my kids, and I would apologize to them, even with tears in my eyes, and I would just do it again, and I would do it again, and I would lose my temper with them, and I would wake up the next morning, the Lord would gently say, "That's not how I want you to be," and I would tell him, "I can't help it. I need your help." And then I would ask for his help, and then the next night, brushing the teeth with the obstinate child, I'd lose it again. And then finally I asked the Lord to, I need your help, but I also just need you to remind me. So I have a shot, because these moments come upon me too quickly. I don't even have a shot. Remind me. And then that night, as I was walking upstairs to brush that child's teeth, he drove me nuts for a year. Walking upstairs, I was reminded by the Lord to ask Saint Therese for her prayers. And then when I was brushing his teeth, I was reminded by the Lord that he had grace for me in this moment, and I asked him for the grace. And that child was as obstinate and stupid as ever. And I had this patience that came out of nowhere, and I knew it wasn't mine. I knew it. That my poverty had no business being that patient. I had not willed this. It wasn't because I had started praying a daily rosary. It wasn't started because I had gone to daily mass. It wasn't because I started memorizing scriptures on patience. It was just given to me freely, victoriously, in an instant. He overcame this in me. And then every night, walking up the stairs, he would remind me, and I would ask Saint Therese for her prayers. And every night, as that child tried to drive me nuts, I rode the sea. I rode the calm seas with Jesus. And I was patient. And I could tell you stories about little addictions I've had over the years, and patience, and you all know this too. It took me a while, because I was just an achiever. Get after it. Checklist. Make a plan. I'm gonna become holy. I was the protagonist of my holiness. And when I learned from my spiritual director, no, he's the protagonist. Our role is surrender in our poverty. Then I started experiencing victory. And that we all know, but I just want to remind us that is how it will be. That's how it will be as for your parishes to become apostolic. That's how it will be. We are poor in our leadership, aren't we? We're poor. Our parishes are poor. Our people are poor. And there's no checklist, and there's no plan, and there's no degree of harder work that will take us there. The Lord himself will birth this. This is the Marian dimension of the church. The Petrine dimension is ordered to the Marian dimension. This Marian dimension will be birthed. It will be birthed. And our role is to say, yes, behold the handmaid of the Lord. Be it done unto me according to thy apostolic will. And he will do it. And so I want to talk about this sleeping giant with great joy and hope. And let's continue to ask the Lord and surrender in our poverty. Lord, yes, wake this giant. Wake this giant. Let me be Mary. Let me give birth to this. But Lord, I need you to conceive. I need you to come and do this work in me. So we have this sleeping apostolic giant. We have a world that is under attack. The world is under attack. And we all know it. I'm not going to run through a bunch of depressing statistics. Lisa shared a bunch with us. We all know this. But it's also good to just take stock in what the world is like and what the world is going through. It's good for us, like Gaudium et Spes says, to share the griefs and anxieties. It's good, and also the joys and victories, because the joys and victories are out there as well. Let's share that. But the world is under attack, and there are many griefs and anxieties plaguing the world. And just here's some of the things that I found this week. And I put the studies below if you want to look them up. But the Harvard Graduate School of Engineering and Education did this study. And they were comparing the youth culture with young adult culture throughout the study. I'm not putting the youth culture, but you would think these messed up teens are doing far worse than anybody else. But actually, it's the young adults. It's post-high school. In their 20s, mid-30s, it's the young adults that are really hurting. This number, 44%, is like the teens are like in the 20%. Like it almost doubles the rate of this feeling that they don't matter to others. Young adults are walking around feeling like almost half of the young adults in our country walking around feeling like they don't matter to others. I remember laying in my bed at night wondering if I mattered. I had walked away from the Lord. I was tangled up in darkness. I was friends with people who didn't share my faith. I was friends with people who just wanted something from me. I was a means to their end. Very common form of friendship in the world, I think. And I remember laying down wondering if I mattered. I knew I mattered to my parents. I didn't know if I mattered to my friends. I didn't know if I mattered to my school where I was going to college. I didn't know. Man, this is a vacuous feeling. 44% walk around with this feeling. 27% of adults say that most days they feel so stressed that they can't function. I told this to my young adult oldest son. Like, did you know this? And he goes, that's messed up. He was totally judgmental. Like, who are these dysfunctional people? But imagine that, so stressed out that they're not sure they can function. The anxiety, and I have felt that in seasons of my life. I felt that crippling anxiety in seasons of my life where I just didn't know how it was going to come together. I felt that in times in college, and I would call my mom, and she would talk me off the ledge. I felt that at times with the Evangelical Catholic when I'm looking at the next payroll, and I don't know how we're going to make it. and I'm going to lose my house. And then the devil fills you with all these thoughts of all the bad things that are going to happen. They start rolling. These tapes start playing. You can't get them out of your head. You fall asleep for an hour. You wake up and you can't fall back asleep. You get up at 2 a.m. Might as well work. I'm not sleeping anymore tonight because I'm just so stressed I can't function. And we all feel glimpses of it. But 27% say most days. Most days. They feel like I felt in those little windows most days. And they don't know where to go with it. They don't know where to go with their anxiety. Man, I know where to go. I know where to go. I've got a mom to call who's going to share about the peace that Jesus wants to give me. I've got a church to go where I can kneel down and know the presence of Jesus and be assured that he's with me. I know I can go to Mary in the middle of the night with my rosary beads and she ministers peace to me. I know where to go. In these brief windows of crippling anxiety, most days, they feel so stressed that they can't function. The world is under attack, man. The devil's having a field day, filling their minds every day with fictitious threats on their life and their existence and their families. It's all pretend. It's all fabrication. We know how he works. He's the father of lies, but they are victim to it. They don't have the scriptures to show them anything different. They don't have the church, as Lisa said, as a refuge. They don't have a priest in their life. So many people, most days, 58% of U.S. married adults say their relationship with their spouse is very good. Does that seem good to you? Man, they go home to a spouse. 42% go home to a spouse who they don't have a very good relationship with. It's true, isn't it? That's true in our pews. I know that for a fact. But imagine that. Well, many of you may go home to rectories where you might know something about this feeling, but when you're married and you're called to this union and intimacy, and your home is not home. Man, deep, deep pain here from men that I've met. Deep pain, crying out to the Lord for a relationship with their wife that's very good. And they can't have it. It's out of their reach. And people without faith, what are they doing? Assuaging that lack in their life with all kinds of darkness. But the world wants to be rescued. Here's the good news. The world wants to be rescued, and I'm just going to show you one study that I think is fantastic. Fantastic news. And here it is. This is from 2022. You can see in the bottom. But wow. Look at this. And it doesn't even vary that much across generations. A lot of times you just see this depressing thing on the left. But here we have, and it doesn't even go to the older generation. We're with the boomers here. Who are getting older and older, but would like to grow spiritually. Look at this spiritual hunger. And it's understandable because they're under attack. It's understandable because of the numbers I just showed you. They want to grow spiritually. All of them, above 70%, are certain or think a spiritual, supernatural dimension exists. Look at that. And the lowest one is the boomers. 79%. Man, wouldn't you think by the media narrative and by the cultural narrative that almost everybody's materialist? I mean, maybe you wouldn't because you're in touch with a more spiritual crowd, and but I would. I was blown away by this. Like, the world has rejected the narrative of materialism. Largely, they all reject it. No, there's a spiritual realm. There's a spiritual dimension. I'm certain of it, or I think there probably is. They're not buying the narrative that there's nothing. And then believe in God or a higher power. Look at that. So this great There's great opportunity here. This says to me that the world wants to be rescued. This says to me that the world knows they're in pain, they're suffering, and they want to be rescued, that they're reaching out. A lot of these people are the, I'm spiritual, not religious crowd, but I'll take that. I can work with that. That's a work of God, isn't it? That's a work of God that they're not just rejecting the whole thing. I mean, we mock those people sometimes. I'm spiritual, not religious. It is kind of ridiculous, but that's a work of the Holy Spirit. That's an openness to a deeper conversation. That's an openness to the loving witness of people that they encounter from your parish. The world wants to be rescued. And I love this passage. I'm sure you do too. In this world, you will have tribulation. You will be attacked. You will have anxiety. You will have crippling anxiety. You will have marriages go through hard times. You will feel like nobody cares about you. You will have all kinds of lies fill your mind. In this broken world, you will encounter trouble. Loved ones will die. You will struggle with the grief of the people you love dearest, dying or suffering. In this world, you will have tribulation. We all have tribulation. The griefs and anxieties of the world are those of the church. Indeed, it is true. But be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. Be of good cheer. I have grace for you. Be of good cheer. I have friends for you. Be of good cheer. I have a community for you. Be of good cheer. I have a refuge for you. I have overcome the world. There's nothing that the world will throw at you that you can't rise above. By my grace, I have overcome the world. The world wants to be rescued. The world's waiting for the giant to awaken. The world's waiting for good news. The world's waiting for the church to be present to them right where they are. So here's the sleeping giant. This is a map I found. I don't know that there's roughly 20,000 parishes, but these little dots represent all the parishes in the country. And let's just say there's 20,000 dots out there. Isn't that awesome? Look at Wisconsin. What a glorious land. I mean, that's so beautiful. You see that little space between the Door County Peninsula there, on the thumb? That's where I grew up. Look at how red that is. Everybody I knew was Catholic growing up. Everybody I knew. I was not Catholic. I was part of an Evangelical Protestant church, but every single person I knew was Catholic. Every once in a while I met a Lutheran. You know what I thought about Catholics? Usually the meanest kids in school. That's what I thought about Catholics. Usually the biggest partiers in school. Usually they're the ones that started swearing the soonest. Usually they're the ones that wanted to cheat off my test. Now, that's just because everybody was Catholic, and here comes everybody, right? But I never met a Catholic growing up who was inspiring to my faith. I never met a Catholic that I wanted to be like. I never had a Catholic that had something in the spiritual life that I didn't have. Never met it. I would go to Mass growing up for funerals or weddings, special occasions. I had no idea what I was doing, just trying to figure out the whole thing. But I looked around, and it didn't seem like anybody wanted to be there. They were sleeping. It's like St. Paul in Ephesians. Awake, O sleeper. They were sleeping. But man, imagine if every kid that I grew up with, if every family that I encountered, if every Mass that I went to was alive. What would that have done to my little Protestant heart? I mean, I read Rome Sweet Home, and I loved it. I mean, I was dating this Catholic girl, and she was gorgeous, and she gave me a book, so I was like, okay, you're pretty, I'll read this. So I read the book, and man, that made sense. It was like, everything in here. I actually was so sick of Protestant divisions and, all the nonsense in the Protestant church. I was like, we need a pope, man. Protestants need a pope. And I was seriously looking through the Protestant world, who could be our pope? They've got a pope. We need a pope. I didn't want to become Catholic. I didn't want to join that morose group that I had seen so many times at funerals and weddings. I had no desire to join that. But I did know we needed a pope. I also started to think, man, this pro-life argument starts to make a lot of sense. Now I don't know if I believe, back then, I don't know if I believe this, but this contraception argument, this seems really good. I can see how this is a way of freedom in trusting the Lord. I can see how this is good for a marriage. I mean, I started buying it hook, line, and sinker. And it took me a year and a half, even with that, to become Catholic, because I had to submit the vision of my family and my marriage to the community of faith that I had seen growing up. It was hard. I mean, if I had grown up meeting you, if I had grown up meeting the men on my staff and their families and the women on our staff and their families, if I had grown up seeing that, man, I'd have been in. I'd have been like, this explains it. This is awesome. But the giant is sleeping. But here we have, Lisa said 73 million earlier. I see different numbers about this all the time, but there was a recent Pew study, 2023, where 20% of this, sophisticated sample size responded and said they were Catholic. So they said, we're sure that it's roughly 52 million. It might be more. But I'm just going with the conservative number, 52 million. So here's what the giant looks like. 20,000 parishes. You saw the red dots all over the place. We still have 52 plus million people self-identifying as Catholic in this country. That's beautiful. Then we have 28% of that 52 million saying they attend Mass weekly or more. That was more than I remembered. I think we've actually had a little uptick after COVID. Again, this is the 2023 Pew study. All right, so now I'm bringing in Sherry Waddell from Forming Intentional Disciples, because I haven't seen Barna or Pew do any study about the number of intentional disciples, people who are really committed to the Catholic Church. I know Matthew Kelly did a study. I think he was 7%. I'm taking the more conservative Sherry Waddell, 5%. All right, so we're just saying out of the 28% that attend Catholic Mass, Sherry is saying 5% of them are intentional, committed disciples. They live their lives for Jesus during the week. So we have 728,000 of them in our country. I think that's good. That's good news. I mean, I don't know how you feel, but in my going around the country and going to masses and seeing how sparsely attended a daily mass is and going to Sunday mass, like I don't know if I would have told you, like if you asked me how many of them there are, I might have said, I don't know, like 10,000. Like I just wouldn't have thought it was that many. So I'm greatly encouraged by that. And then the DeSales Media Group did a study on intentional disciples, which is actually really good. And what they found is 76% of the intentional disciples, however many they are, but we'll say 728,000. 76% of those people are interested in learning evangelization skills. That's awesome. So we have people living for Jesus in our parishes who really want to learn how to reach out to the world, how to share the gospel with the world, how to witness for the faith in the world. This is beautiful. And then 16% of the intentional disciples said they currently have strong skills. How many of you believe that? I don't know that I do, but I still find it's greatly encouraging that they think they do. That's good. I mean, it shows like they want to do it. They want to grow in it. And, some of the ways they evangelize might be stupid. It might be unfruitful. But I'm still really glad that they're there. That'd be 116,000. So that's a different set than the people who said they're interested in learning. So when you take all of that together, you have 669,760 people in the United States who are positioned, ready to be trained. That's really good news, I think. 20,000 parishes, 670,000 of them are ready to be trained. They don't have to be evangelized. They're already intentional disciples. They're already living for Jesus. They just need to be shown how to be relevant in the world. These are the people that go to Mass, go to daily Mass, and when someone asks them why they go to Mass, they say, I'm Catholic. It's just what I do. They don't know how to walk through the door. They don't know how to ask a question in return. They don't know how to lead a relationship deeper so they can talk and uncover some of these hidden struggles that are going. They have no idea how to do this. They just shut the conversation with, I don't know, it's just I'm Catholic, it's just what I do. It's not true. It's not true about them. They come for deeper reasons. They come because they love the church. They come because they've experienced peace in times of anxiety. They come because their deepest friendships are at the church. They come because Sunday Mass gives them strength for the week. There's all kinds of awesome reasons why they go to Mass. They just have no idea how to share it. The pathways in their brain have not been carved out to give an answer that's relevant, an answer that's compelling. They don't have a vision for how to lead that conversation deeper. But they're ready. They're ready, and we can show them. We can show them. 670,000. All right, so looking at this map, I don't have it. I might have to fast forward here because this is pretty cool. I did a little math. Just to show you what might happen if we did this, because I think it's encouraging. All right, so we have this map here, and that's 20,000 dots. There are almost 4 million square miles in the United States. So right now, if you put 33 dots up there for every dot that's there, that's the number of intentional disciples around the country that are ready to be equipped for evangelization. Just picture, what does that map look like if for every dot that's up there, you're adding 33 dots? On average, we have 33 people in our parish waiting to be equipped for evangelization. On average. Some of you have bigger parishes, you have more. Some of you have smaller parishes, you have less. We all have some. There was a pastor in San Diego that I worked with once. I just became good friends with him. And he called me on vacation. I picked up, and he said, Jason, I want to work together, but I don't have anyone on fire in my parish. I said, not one? He said, no, I haven't met them. They're not here. I said, Father, you do. You do have people on fire. So let me come out there. Let's have a meeting. You gather the people that you think have highest likelihood of being on fire, and let's get together in a room. And I'm telling you, that room was full of awesome people. But the devil had given him this lie that he doesn't have anybody. And not until I challenged him to gather a group of people did he start thinking with some hope about it. You all have these people in your parish. Now, if you put 33 dots up there, how do I get that back? If you could put 33 dots up there, you would have one disciple trained for evangelization every 5.7 square miles of this country. Now, in Philly, that's not really good. You know? In Wyoming, that's pretty good. But that's not bad. I mean, when I look at that number, I'm like, we can work with that. Like, I feel like we can change the country. If I have one on-fire, zealous, trained, evangelical, fired up, gonna die for Jesus person every 6 square miles, I feel like I can work with that. Like if I'm Jesus, I'm like, all right, let's go. I got something to work with here. Right now, we don't really have that. But if we train these people who are in our parish, you can have that. And even better, because some of you have more trained disciples in your pew, more disciples ready to be trained in your pews. Now, if we just double that, now we start really talking. Now we got one every 2.8 square miles across this country. These people are in your pews. It's possible to wake the sleeping giant. It's sleepy. We all know it's sleepy, but we're not stuck there. We're not stuck there. You have all these people in your pews. This giant can be woken up. It's not about It's not about, I love that quote from Lisa this morning, it's in my notebook. Maybe, do not despise the small beginnings. You know, that's the way to wake the sleeping giant. Don't despise the small beginnings. Let's just look around with our head on a swivel. Think about what these disciples, I don't care how old they are, man. At a training a couple weeks ago, we had like a 87-year-old woman. And she walked in, and I was like, awesome. Awesome. And she came up to me after and just told me how fired up she was. And she told me about her apostolate and what she was doing and who she was reaching out with. And I told the story about Caleb fighting the giants in the promised land and how he was over 80 years old. And she was on that. She was like, I'm Caleb, baby. Let's go. Like, I don't care, old or young, I don't care. Let's train them. We got Caleb's. You know, we got young men and women, old men. I mean, they're doing awesome work. Let's train them. We can wake the sleeping giant. So that's what this can look like. Do not despise the small beginnings. And we're going to talk more about this. But right now, I just want to send you into small groups. I have some slides here that you can go through. Did I hit all my slides, Justin? I did want to say this, one more thing. Sometimes we think equipping adults is the long game. You know, like, it's going to be 100 years before the church renews, you know. We're going to get smaller and smaller, and, you know, pretty soon there's going to be 10 of us, and maybe in 1,000 years we'll become a glorious church again. I disagree with all of that. I mean, I said last year, you know, I respect Pope Benedict, and maybe he was speaking prophetically, and, you know, I can go with it. I don't accept it, because I really think equipping adults is the short game. I've seen it. I've seen when you equip adults and give them an entrepreneurial, innovative, zealous vision for outreach, that they get busy and they're fruitful and they multiply. They do awesome things. They lead small groups. They lead men's groups. They have people over for their house. They start reaching their neighbors. They start evangelizing your pews. It's the short game. You know, we do have some long games in the church that are worth playing. You know, I would say youth ministry is a long game. Like, we just hope they stick around someday and, you know, stay in the game. Schools are a long game, and it's worth playing the long games. It's worth playing the long games. But you as a pastor need some short games. You need some short games. You need some quick wins. And I'm telling you, when you equip adults for evangelization, it's the short game. It's the quick wins. It's worth doing. But oftentimes in our parishes, it's the most neglected thing. We're not doing it. And I can't speak for you. I think we probably have the best priests in the country here. Maybe you are doing it. But you know friends who aren't doing it. you know that this is a struggle. It's a struggle to carve out the time and the space for it. It's not sexy like youth ministry. You know, it's not demanding like the school. Nobody's knocking on your door asking for it, demanding it, you know, like they do with other ministries that you do. But this is the short game. This is where you get your quick wins. This is where your priesthood comes alive in a new way, and you start to see fruitfulness in your community. This is where it is. This is the short game, if we prioritize it. If we prioritize it. We'll talk more about that throughout the conference and the challenges of that. But I just want to encourage you that these people are out there. There's a lot of them, and it's the short game. All right. Thank you.